For the longest time, we've thought of storytelling as just an art, a creative skill used to entertain us or maybe spice up a dull presentation. But as we begin this explainer, I want to completely flip that idea on its head. Storytelling isn't just entertainment, it's actually the brain's primary operating system. It is the hidden architecture behind literally everything: how we remember, what we truly believe, and ultimately how we choose to act.
Think about your own daily life. If someone hands you a static, dry list of facts, it takes massive mental effort to stay focused on it, right? But put yourself at a roadside tea stall, listening to a simple, completely unpolished story, and you're hooked. It effortlessly captures your attention, not because it's loud or professionally produced, but because our minds are fundamentally built to lean toward human intention and meaning.
As we explore this further, we uncover the meaning-making machine, how the brain actually answers our deepest questions.
At its core, a story is a mental system helping the brain rapidly process reality. We don't just passively listen to a narrative. The exact moment a story begins, the mind fires up and asks, "What is happening?" It immediately tries to orient itself, scanning the environment to find the baseline. Who's there? Where are they? It's a rapid reflex of situational awareness.
And almost instantly, your brain moves to the next layer, asking, why does it matter? Your mind is furiously searching for relevance. It's weighing the emotional weight of the unfolding events. If a glass falls off a table, well, that's just an event. But what if it's the last remaining glass from your grandmother's wedding set? The physical event is exactly the same, but the emotional meaning, the reason it actually matters, has completely changed.
Which leads straight to the ultimate question: what should I feel about it? Once these questions are activated and emotion enters the picture, a profound shift happens. The story stops being just a delivery mechanism for information. It becomes the very framework your mind organizes itself around. Your brain's attention tightens, memory gets a stronger grip, and suddenly the information becomes incredibly sticky.
But what's actually causing this? It comes down to the hidden machinery, the cognitive engine running quietly beneath the surface. When we look closely, an underlying pattern emerges. Stories run on desire and resistance. That is the engine. Imagine someone walking up to a door with a push sign. The sign itself isn't a story. The story begins when they push the door, meet resistance because it's stuck, and have to adjust and try again. Desire gives the story direction, and resistance creates the tension. Our minds lock in on that effort. Without a want, there's no direction. Without resistance, there's no movement. A story without desire isn't a story at all. It's just a report.
But desire alone isn't enough. The mind also requires stakes, a reason why the outcome actually matters. Imagine sitting at a family dinner table. If someone simply says, "Pass the salt," nothing is really happening. It's a totally neutral fact. But if they pause, look up and say, "I need to tell you something important," you can literally feel the air shift in the room. The facts haven't even arrived yet, but your brain knows the stakes have shifted. Storytelling turns neutral information into meaningful consequence. Ultimately, stories work by tracking change over time. The mind loves comparing before and after. Imagine a perfectly folded shirt sitting on a shelf. It's static. There's zero drama. But imagine that exact same shirt, wrinkled, wet, repaired, and handed down after a long journey. Now it carries a history. It has become a visible record of transformation. If nothing changes, the mind has no reason to update its mental model. Change is what gives the story its shape. Furthermore, stories organize human intention. Facts describe a world, but stories describe a world through people trying to do things. We don't just see people as moving objects, we experience them as agents with deep purposes. If someone abruptly leaves a room, your mind doesn't just register the movement. It instantly asks, are they angry, nervous, avoiding someone? Storytelling is essentially a highly sophisticated machine for making a person's invisible inner life visible to our brains. And all of this is held perfectly together by compression. A story acts like a beautifully packed suitcase for human experience. You can't carry everything you own on a trip, right? You pack enough to represent what you need. A story takes a long, disorganized pile of details and packages it into a usable shape. It leaves out the unnecessary noise, but keeps the absolute crucial emotional logic. It reduces complexity without reducing significance, so the mind can easily carry it. Once this highly compressed, emotionally resonant narrative enters the mind, it does something extraordinary. We see a shifting of belief and truth, how narrative literally alters our reality. Think of belief as a map inside your head. Dry statistics and facts are useful. They add locations and data points to that map.
But stories show you the routes. They reveal exactly how one thing leads to another. A dry statistic just gives you information, but a story gives it shape. It doesn't always have to prove something logically. Instead, it makes an idea mentally livable, coherent, and natural. This is exactly how stories take highly abstract concepts and make them concrete. Words like justice, courage, and sacrifice are notoriously difficult for the brain to hold on to because they aren't physical objects. But when these ideas are embodied in human choices, when a story gives them a face and a real cost, they become visible. A story allows our brain to rehearse our moral values through high-stakes situations instead of just repeating empty slogans.
It's essentially simulation without consequence, a safe space that ends up powerfully altering our real-life human priorities.
Narratives physically change our behavior by shifting our internal weights, what feels urgent and worth doing. They achieve this primarily through identification. When we identify with a character, our brain temporarily borrows their perspective. We simulate their goals, their fears, and their choices right inside our own minds. It's like running a mental trial. We get to experience the devastating cost of a bad decision or the triumph of persistence, all without any real-world risk.
But remember, a story doesn't just live inside one isolated brain. It spreads. Stories become social tools that organize overlapping facts to create a shared sense of reality. Think about an event a group experiences together. How are they going to remember it? Was it an unfair loss? A brave stand? A lucky escape? The raw facts might be identical, but the story they repeat is what organizes those facts, turning private thoughts into tools for group belonging, identity, and shared memory.
And perhaps the most fascinating part is how quietly all of this happens. A direct argument is forceful. It tells you what to think. But a story just gently says, look at this situation. Notice what it reveals. People naturally resist being pushed, but we are incredibly open to discovery. A story arranges experiences so that our minds connect the dots and arrive at the conclusion entirely on our own. It's influence, but without the coercion.
As we bring this all together, we're finally seeing the cognitive design, the final realization.
We can now see the entire chain connected. Stories capture attention, shape memory, change belief, and shift behavior. This completely changes everything we thought we knew. A story is not powerful just because it is artistic. It is powerful because it fits the brain's deepest organizing patterns. We have moved from seeing stories merely as creative content to recognizing them as highly sophisticated cognitive design.
Once you see this hidden machinery, the desire, the stakes, the change, you will see it absolutely everywhere. So the next time you hear a political speech, watch a film, or even just listen to a friend explain their day at a tea stall, you won't just ask if it was a good story. You'll look right through the surface, down into the mechanics, and ask yourself this: what is this story making the mind do? Keep using this lens, and I promise you, you'll never look at human communication the same way again.